everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and here's Jayson.
That's me.
And welcome back to the Pilot Show, a show by and for people who don't always finish things. Jayson, what are we covering today?
We are covering House.
Yeah, it's a brick.
MD.
No, it's an American. It's a British man faking an American accent really, really well. House.
Yes.
Hmm. What year does
Was
the
he
show
actually
start?
British?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that because I know they really wanted an American guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually realize that. I didn't know anything about him. So.
Yeah, he was the co-star of a really popular British comedy called Fry and Laurie. And Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie, and he was also in some Blackadder. He was a really popular British comedian. And it's interesting how some of his British humor sensibilities come out with this, even though he's playing an American and it feels very American. You know what I mean? It's like the sensibilities of the show, some of the humor is very British, but the character himself is not.
Yeah.
So it's kind of impressive. This show starts in 2004. And on the Fox network, and runs 8 seasons, and that's about half of what I know about the background of the show. I know very little about the show. Jayson is going to give us a rundown here in a little bit on the background of this pilot, like he's going to do every episode. And This is going to be stark contrast to what we did last week, because talking about the pilot for Star Trek: The Next Generation, I'm a fountain of knowledge about that, and was able to talk as much about the making of that show and what it leads to as the pilot itself. This is going to be much more indicative of what this show will be much of the time. I mean, we'll cover stuff we know, but we'll also try to cover lots of stuff we've never seen before. And so we're going to be evaluating the pilot by itself as a thing we've not seen anything more of. And this is a true pilot, a true first episode, so we didn't watch any more of it. Yeah. Sometimes, particularly with animated shows, we'll probably feel the need to watch a couple of episodes just because it's so short, and we may not have enough time to say everything we want to say in the 20 minutes we'll be watching a show.
Yeah, and also they don't, especially with animes and stuff, they don't get a lot of stuff done in one singular episode.
A lot of those don't feel like true pilots.
Right.
And so we'll cheat a little bit and go a little bit further with some of those, especially stuff that's real serialized. But this, and sometimes we won't make that call until we watch it and prepare for it. But this seemed like a case where, even though I'm hearing from people like 123 Rock Fan at the beginning or before we started broadcasting, that the show changes real fast, and he says this is a very pilot-y sort of pilot. It felt like it might be real indicative of what the show would be moving forward.
Yeah,
so that's interesting. That's interesting to know, and I'm curious if I watch more of it to see how the flavor of it changes. Because he says this is probably the most pilot episode of any show ever. It's remarkable how short of a time it took for the tone and quality of the show to change.
Like, I wonder if I would actually like what it turns into more than the pilot. Like, do we actually? Do I want the show to actually change? Like, because I just kind of want more of what the pilot was, but I don't know.
I wonder if that means that some of the ways in which it's a little typical TV kind of change and it gets more sophisticated, or if it's like less. Because I don't want to say this is a cornball pilot, but I could see the banter and the humor of it getting like less so, maybe.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a really weird. AMC says the MD is implied. Yeah, I guess the show is technically called House MD. Everybody refers to it just as House.
That's why I said that.
We'll go ahead and get into the background here in a second. Jayson, I'll just lead up front with this. Did you pick up on just with the pilot? Because if there is supposed to be some kind of symbolism that I'm supposed to read into with this, it probably becomes more apparent as the show goes along. But like, why is he named House? Like, house being a word that means something. The place you live versus maybe what your home is. Like, I'm wondering if there's a interpretation.
Yeah.
Did you have any thought about that?
I didn't, actually.
Okay, well, I don't want to read into it too far yet, but we'll talk about that maybe a little bit as we watch the show. Jayson, why don't you go ahead and give us a rundown of the background that you did some research for?
Okay. So, So Paul Attanasio and David Shore came up with the idea of House, and they knew that they were looking for that Fox was looking for procedurals. So Attanasio came up for the idea of a medical show in the style of a cop procedural.
Hey, let me stop you for a second because people are talking about the House thing. Gooster says you didn't get the Sherlock Holmes of it all. Slipmaker says it's a play on Sherlock Holmes. I didn't even think about the play on words with that. I was picking up Sherlock Holmes constantly, but I wasn't thinking Holmes starts like home because there's an L in it. So I just didn't piece that together. Yeah, but good call. Now I feel dumb. But yeah, that's totally fair. No, that's cool. If that's, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that would be deliberate, because I was like, well, there's got to be some kind of reason you would call him that when that's like a word, and you'd think just hearing the name of that show that you'd be watching a totally different kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it'd be on like HGTV or something.
Yeah.
Slipmaker says allegedly. Oh, okay. So it's maybe even indeterminate that they did that on purpose. But yeah, I was thinking Sherlock Holmes all the way through it. And you had a thing about a character that's maybe supposed to be like his Watson, and yeah, he and I talked about that a little bit while we were watching it. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Jason's he's gonna lay down the facts.
Yeah,
he's got the mad facts.
So Attanasio was inspired by the New York Times Magazine column Diagnosis, written by Lisa Sanders, who was a physician at Yale New Haven Hospital, and that hospital was the inspiration for the hospital in the show, and she actually worked as a consultant on the show.
Oh, interesting. Is that because that hospital was known for a lot of unethical practices, like breaking into people's houses? Or homes, as it were?
So David Shore and Paul Attanasio pitched the idea to Fox, and they bought the series. Though the president of Fox at the time, Gil Berman, said, this is quote for quote, I want a medical show, but I don't want white coats going down the hallway.
Okay.
And this...
and so that's why they went with a less obvious premise with, with their main character.
And the writers said that this
remark... unconventional guy.
Yeah, this remark influenced some of what led to the show's final form.
Okay, there you go.
The show had the working title Chasing Zebras, Circling the Drain.
Oh.
Zebras medical slang for rare disease or condition, and Circling the Drain refers to terminal cases or like patients in an irreversible decline. And
there's a whole witty discussion within the first couple of scenes about zebras versus horses.
Yeah. I don't really like that title though.
No, I don't either. I don't either. But it's interesting that that's in there.
Yeah.
Given that conversation.
Yeah. Shore thought the show should have an interesting misanthropic main character who could diagnose patients.
I'm sorry, misanthropic?
Yeah, misanthropic.
Misanthropic. He's 13, folks. He's gonna learn as he goes. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I found out what the word meant, and I was like, well, I can't really come up with a word that's better than it. But for some reason, I didn't know how to pronounce it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm not gonna get you for plagiarism.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It wasn't because
you're not copying sentences directly out of Wikipedia for this.
No,
right?
I'm not, because it's not even in like my sources. Like that word wasn't in there. Yeah. I just learned what it meant, and so I put it in there. But
Kudos.
I forgot.
But you didn't know. Oh, so that was your word.
Yeah.
You just didn't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's impressive. You got misinformed. Sorry, go ahead.
So he could diagnose patients' illnesses from their secrets and lies. And as this character progressed, the concept of the show became less about procedural and more focused on the lead role.
Yeah, I've heard that it gets pretty serialized, like a lot of shows from this period do, even if they intended to be more episodic in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that Fox wanted procedural meaning a cop drama or hospital drama or whatever it is, a service kind of thing that might have threads but is mostly a show that you can tune in anytime you wanted to and just watch a singular episode. Given that a lot of their most popular stuff right then were really arcy things, you'd think they'd be going after the next 24, which is not a procedural.
Yeah.
This is in the heyday of that show.
Yeah. Shore came up with the idea of the character of House from an experience he had at a patient at a teaching hospital. He said, and this is quote, I knew as soon as I left the room they would be mocking me relentlessly for my cluelessness, and I thought it would be interesting to see a character that actually did that before they left the room.
Yeah.
Which is just what he does. Like, that's... And the creative team always wanted House to be disabled in some way. He was originally going to be in a wheelchair.
What, could you imagine that?
Yeah.
If your lead was in a wheelchair the whole show?
Yeah. But Fox rejected it.
Oh, Fox just said they couldn't do it?
Yeah. And then it turned into a scar for a little bit, just on his face. And then they made him...
Oh, this is way better than that.
Yeah.
It was... He just walks around and goes, do you want to know how I got this scar? Yeah, it would be hard for the... I would think, and again, I'm just basing everything I'm saying off the one episode I watched, the pilot. But it would be hard to appreciate the pathos as much, I would think, if it was just a scar.
Yeah.
Because, like, maybe he went through some massive trauma with whatever it is that caused that.
Yeah.
But he's not having to live with it every day in the way that being the term that they use a lot in the show, a cripple, causes him.
Yeah. And Hugh Laurie was in Namibia, filming the movie Flight of the Phoenix.
Oh.
During the casting call.
Mm-hmm.
So he recorded the tape in a hotel bathroom because it was the only place that had enough light.
Oh wow!
And he used an umbrella as a cane, and he was just like, "I'm sorry for this looking so bad."
Wow, that's really funny.
The show was originally going to be set in Boston, and then it was changed to be set in Princeton.
Okay.
And
wow, which is interesting because sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you constantly, but it's just making me think of things.
Yeah.
We had a show called Boston Public. You ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
That's about a secondary school. I can't remember if it's like elementary or high school, but a public school. And Jerry Ryan was in that show.
Mm.
And then these are not in the same universe. There was another show called Boston Legal. And you probably heard of that. Mm-hmm. That's a William Shatner comedy starring William Shatner and René Auberjonois. Mm-hmm. Do you know about that?
I didn't know he was in that.
Yeah, they like butt heads, but they're the main characters.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. This could have been called like Boston Medical or something. Isn't that crazy? You could have had a trifecta of those.
Yeah, that would be.
Because this is right around the same time.
Yeah.
As both of those. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
I actually didn't know about that first one though.
Boston Public.
Yeah.
It wasn't as popular. It wasn't on as long. But I only ever saw a couple episodes of that. But I don't even know if Jerry Ryan was on it the whole time. But she was in the one I saw. I think she was one of the main characters.
Well, does House have a Star Trek actor in it?
I'm thinking. Not that I noticed. And I didn't really know any of this cast.
Yeah.
Besides Hugh Laurie, obviously.
Yeah.
Who I don't know from a lot, but just osmosis, this, but then, a couple British things I saw when I was a kid. It is really interesting that this is so, like loosely based on Sherlock Holmes, or like going to that same well, and played by a British guy, because obviously he would have made a great Holmes.
Yeah. And
then a decade later, maybe a little less than a decade later, you get Benedict Cumberbatch playing Sherlock Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
And then Benedict Cumberbatch becomes Doctor Strange, a movie that I feel like is heavily influenced by this.
Yeah.
Now that I've seen a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I've now said probably everything I had to say about the show before we start watching it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, and the pilot, we're still in, place names and stuff, because I put those all
Okay, sure.
The pilot was shot in Vancouver, But all the episodes after were shot in the Fox lot because they
interesting.
like they shot the pilot and then they gave it to Fox and then they're like, yeah, approved.
So this is a traditional pilot situation. They didn't get the order before they made the pilot? Because I couldn't tell from what you were saying earlier if it was a season order before they made the first show.
So what they did was they talked to Fox, and they were like, okay, make us a pilot. And so they made the pilot, and then they were like, okay, you got the show, basically.
Okay, yeah.
But
relatively typical.
Yeah. But the pilot wasn't aired before any of the
And
other
Fox
episodes.
tends to be really gun-shy about this stuff. Like very infamously, where even 24 only got a 12-episode order initially, when the premise calls for a whole day.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's all the horror stories with Firefly and The Tick and all kinds of things. But anyway.
The initial broadcast of the pilot was watched by 7 million viewers, making it like, I think I read that it was like the 62nd most watched show of the week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So not big guns.
No.
But that must have gotten bigger.
Yeah, it did get bigger. Reviews. So the pilot was generally well received. New York called the series medical TV at its most satisfying and basic, and critics appreciated that the episode did not sugarcoat the flaws of the characters or the medical industry. Most critics reacted positively to the lead character. Tom Shales of the Washington Post called him the most electrifying character to hit television in years.
Yeah.
Critics also described the show's heavy use of medical imagery as too gory or a turnoff for some viewers, which I had.
Yeah. But it's Fox again. Look at what was going on in 24.
Yeah. Also, the episode's format was compared to NBC's Medical Investigation, which premiered the same year and also featured tapeworms and gruff doctors.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What was the show he was watching? General Hospital?
Yeah.
Now, was that a Fox-owned show?
I'm not sure.
I assumed it must have been, and that's why they were able to play it, but
yeah.
I don't actually know that.
And I couldn't figure out what the budget was from the beginning of the show, but by the end of the show, Fox was spending $5 million an episode.
Wow.
With Hugh Laurie getting $700,000 an episode.
Yeah. This is really popular.
Yeah.
That's quite a paycheck.
Yeah. He's like one of the highest paying.
AMC says about the hospital, while there is a roughly equivalent hospital in Princeton, the one in the show is actually fictitious. But that's all sets, right?
Yeah.
You said it was shot in the Fox lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for the background, Jason.
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead and get into this? And as we'll always do on this show, this is only our second attempt at this. We're going to watch the show. We're going to talk about it, discuss it as we go, give you our first impressions, and then we'll answer some pilot-y questions at the end. Does the thing have pilotitis? Would we continue? Are we interested in continuing to watch it? Would we greenlight it? Were we studio executives? Everybody get ready to watch the show. It's on Amazon Prime. And I think there might be a couple of other places, but if you have Prime, that's a good way to watch it without commercials. And we're going to get the clock up here on your screen so that you can follow along with us if you need to sync up. I'm going to need you to help me with... Say again?
Do you have the audio settings?
Yeah.
Good.
I'm going to need you to help me out with character names.
Okay. I think
as much as possible. I've got them pulled up, but I don't know who all goes with whom because I've just seen the pilot.
Okay.
And I did look at this a couple of times, but I don't feel like character names with this particular show come up all that often.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure who everybody was. So there's going to be a lot of that one guy.
Yeah.
And the girl and the black guy and like I'm trying to remember everybody's names. So, okay, is everybody ready?
Yes.
I hope so. Here we go. Everybody get ready to press play. We're just about to do it. Please press play right now. Oh, hold on. Okay, there we go. Hopefully that's not enough to get us copyright flagged. Okay, so right away, when we were watching this last week, did you immediately get that the person we're watching is probably not a main character?
I actually didn't at first.
Okay, that I did call. Straight away, I was like, this is going to be our guest star for a procedural. She's the one that's going to get sick. I had that immediately.
I did not.
What do you think overall of the mystery of this, just this one episode of this story?
I think it's pretty good.
So right away, I'm going to throw a criticism at just the story here, not the overall show. And this is a minor thing, kind of. But so the girl who gets sick, when she's in the hospital, nobody comes to visit her because she doesn't have any family close. She's only been dating this guy she's dating for 3 dates. And I thought that was really realistic, by the way, because sometimes on TV, we pretend like people are soulmates when they've barely known each other for any amount of time, right? Yeah. So I liked that, where she was like, well, I wouldn't stand by his bedside if he was throwing up all day. I liked that. Yeah. But her coworker is very interested in what she did over the weekend, and she is probably lying when she says she didn't sleep with that guy and all of that. Mm-hmm. But I would think maybe at least that teacher would pop in, and they seem maybe a tad closer. Yeah. Then they're playing it later on when she says all my favorite people are 5 years old. Wasn't totally sure I bought that. Yeah. I thought she is quite good and real sympathetic.
Yeah, she is.
I cared about her. I felt bad that she was sick. I wanted her to live.
Yeah.
I assumed that she would. I figured in their pilot they weren't going to lose their guest star right away.
I'm kind of weird when it comes to cold opens. Sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't. I like this.
What do you mean, you just wish it would start with an intro, or?
No, just sometimes they're not very original.
Well, yeah. No, absolutely. This, in some ways, is especially for the time period, early 2000s, is a pretty typical cold open. But it kind of grabbed my attention because the illness was so odd and unusual. Like, I couldn't immediately figure out what the problem was. I kind of expected her to not be able to speak the whole episode. I thought she'd get this, like, this disease that disconnected her brain from her mouth, and she would just be gibberish the whole episode. And then it turned out that it wasn't that. Yeah. We go to these ceiling shots a lot.
We do.
I'm noticing. That seems like a choice.
When I watched this, I thought it was kind of weird. Is it weird that, like, it has a black screen for Hugh Laurie, and then it has the opening, and then everyone else is at the bottom?
No, because it's making a big deal out of this is our star.
Yeah.
And trying to make a big deal and a big selling point to come in and watch the show. And of course, he would be a bigger deal because of the show. But that's probably smart. I mean, he was real well liked.
Yeah.
Already from anybody that knew about him from his British work. I really like the banter in this pilot. It's real quick-witted. It's real well paced. There's some nice, clever turns of phrase here and there that will bring up some as we go along. And like I said, just right away, I couldn't help but think, oh, this guy is kind of Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Except a little bit more likable initially than Doctor Strange, because he's not about fame and fortune as much as he is about kind of like revenge on the universe for the frailty of the human body and getting hurt the way he did, where it's like he doesn't care about people in somewhat of a similar way as Doctor Strange initially in those movies. But but his main motivation is different, where like he's not really about legacy or anything. It's a lot more, I have to solve all these problems, try to fix as many cases and understand disease as much as I can.
Yeah.
Because I'm angry with the universe and I have to get revenge on it.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And I hated this. Going through the nose.
Yeah, I don't get that shot. And I feel like a lot of medical dramas do that. A
lot of TV shows in the early 2000s were getting a little bit too big for their britches with CGI. Mm-hmm. It's that lesson of just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should do that thing.
Yeah. Oh, that was in the intro.
Oh,
where
that's true.
They went the brain and then it got to his face. Well, like the little intro. I'm guessing that's not gonna be the actual intro. I'm guessing that like 3-second thingy.
I hope somebody tells us in the comments live here, because I'm actually not sure. I've never heard a theme song for this show, and 24 doesn't have one. It's like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So I would assume that this just has a title card and that's it.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't have a full intro. We were starting to really get past those at this point, and then when you get into streaming shows, we start doing a lot more of them. Mm-hmm. So I like the supporting cast quite a bit, just based on this pilot. I gave this a couple watches, like I said, and on first watch, I was so intrigued by and focused on House that I kind of lost the supporting cast.
Yeah.
And on a second viewing, they jumped out at me a lot more. Especially, I was interested in them. There's the Mad Zebra thing, which I think is real clever. Where he calls back to it. Yeah. Somebody else had brought that up.
And I always thought that this I kept mixing up Wilson and this other guy who I can't remember his name, but he's the guy with like the long hair. I kept thinking that was Wilson the first time I watched it, and
Matthew Bass says it does have an intro. It's short but memorable. Senior Nerd says it had a theme song. It was charged out by Massive Attack, but took it away because of copyright. Oh. Okay. I think some of the best writing in this pilot is between House and his boss.
Yeah,
and
I think so.
That tete-a-tete is wonderful, and her constantly finding ways to try to force him to do his job is really good. Like, I think she is sympathetic enough, but I don't immediately know if I can trust her. Yeah. From his perspective, which I really like. So like, she's trying to keep her hospital running, and it seems like is maybe compassionate enough and trying to do the right thing, but also there is the bureaucracy and the politics of a hospital to consider when you're at the top of it.
Yeah, and these conversations also really get you into his character, and I think his conversations with this character than like any other characters kind of do it the best.
Really illuminate who he is and what he's all about.
Yeah, because he's talking to someone kind of, higher than him, because she's the person who owns the hospital.
Yeah, the one person that can get rid of her. What do you think of the Mick Jagger references?
Yeah.
You can't always get what you want thing.
Yeah, I think
and then we pay that off at the end.
Yeah. Well,
not even pay it off so much as just kind of put a cap on it.
And it's not at the end. It's like in like 3 scenes.
No. We hear the song at the end.
Oh.
It plays out.
Does it?
You didn't get that?
I guess
the choir from that song, You Can't Always Get What You Want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right at the very end. The last scene.
Completely forgot that.
Giving us the shot of the hospital.
Yeah.
But yes, it's really nice when it comes back. I did think it was really funny that she had to go look it up. Like, is she supposed to be that much younger than him that she wouldn't know that song? Or she's like, I went and looked up Jagger. Maybe she didn't actually look it up and she's just saying that, but I kind of wondered about that. I like the lighting in this scene a lot.
Yeah.
This is my favorite bit of banter between them.
I think this is probably my favorite scene.
The way she holds her ground is wonderful. Like, if I keep watching the show, she's probably one of the top 3 things I'm most curious about.
Yeah.
To just see how that relationship goes. And we're using some really good comedic chops here from both of these actors in a dramatic scene. So like it's funny, but it's not laugh out loud funny when she's like, I mean, if you're gonna hurt me, that's scary.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure I could outrun you. Like that's great.
Yeah.
Both in the writing and the acting. She's wonderful. I just love the way she stands up to him.
Yeah.
This show is playing around real hard with typical TV archetypes. In kind of subverting them and using them all at the same time, where you can't really tell from the pilot just where a lot of these characters are going to go. You know, we're saying like we've got our kind of token black guy with a criminal record, and they come right out and say like, oh, did he hire him just because he's a black guy with a criminal record?
Yeah.
And then you find out that if he's to be believed, that no, not really.
Yeah.
But it's like the show is messing with your expectations with those archetypes.
Yeah.
And how much of that do you think is them trying to deliver to Fox what they asked for, where like it's a procedural, but it's not everything you've seen before in a hospital drama?
Yeah. I think that works.
Like I said, the supporting cast I found myself really intrigued by on a second viewing in relation to House and how, like, the reasons that he hired them. Because that's really, that reveals a lot about his character.
Yeah.
And his kind of cynicism that helps him in some ways do his job better. Where like he doesn't hire people because they're the most compassionate and care the most about people. He hires them because they have some of what we would think of as flaws.
Yeah.
Maybe that most he thinks helps him get the job done. The going into her throat, that CG, I think that's more effective.
Yeah, I think that works a bit better.
A little bit better.
Yeah.
I still don't know that we need it. That we need to see the throat closed to understand what's happening.
Yeah. Okay, I am so glad that he has other people with him.
Because she'd be dead.
She would be dead.
Yep. No, I cringed at that.
Yeah.
Where I was like, well, God, if he was in charge, or the only people there, or the only person there, yeah, you're absolutely right. I have a hard time watching scenes like this sometimes because I'm claustrophobic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I'm not. I can't handle scenes like this.
Oh, with the tracheotomy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. I mean, I don't like that either, but that doesn't bother me as much as it does you, I think.
Yeah, it really bothers me.
I don't want to do a CAT scan. I don't want to have to be in a machine like that.
See, and I'd be fine with that.
Oof,
honestly.
I can't do it. That is a thing that I feel like I've seen a lot, and maybe even before this, that was, I don't want to say cliche, but kind of typical, like I saw where it was going. As soon as she goes in that machine, I was like, something about that machine is gonna screw with her, and she's almost gonna die.
Yeah.
Did you see that coming?
Yeah, I did.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I know where this is going.
I really like when they like spin the camera around from like the ceiling, and they have like, you know, like the way that's directed while they're like doing the medical stuff, and then it's like spinning around. Yeah.
Besides the hospital director, who I think we're both agreeing is really interesting.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite of the main supporting cast, of like the doctors that he hired that work for him so far? I guess this is a question that we ask at the end, but
yeah. I do like
I can't remember these characters' names.
I do like Wilson, but we don't get much from him. I think my favorite is the black guy.
Yeah, Eric. See, I had to really noodle the thing he says about how he goes, truth begins with lies.
Yeah, and
then
no
Eric
one
goes, does that even mean anything? And I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, no, I think I can kind of see what he's getting at. Like, if you don't trust anybody, and you think they're always saying whatever they think is in their best interest, which is the reason that he doesn't want to actually talk to patients, because he doesn't think that it's useful, but also because he's again, he's more interested in fixing problems than he is he's more interested in the mystery and solving it.
Yeah.
Than he is in helping human beings.
Yeah.
But I think what that means is like the lies people tell reveals motivation.
Yeah.
Like truth begins in lies because if you can figure out why a person is telling that lie,
yeah, I think that makes sense.
You'll figure out what motivates them.
Yeah. I really like these like side things with the with these just like random characters.
Yeah, and they all come back. Like it's a real tight story.
Yeah, like we're not just on this one patient. Like that's what I like about it is we're also having like the side thing with these other patients that are just coming in like,
and they're not overly complicated subplots or anything, and they're all connected to the A story in the way that House figures out things through them.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Both about how to solve this problem, but also kind of revealing things about his character.
Yeah. And also, this really talks about like the. This really tells like the thing that they wanted from him, where he just tells the patients right out that they don't know anything about anything.
Yeah, there's something really refreshing about the way he handles people because, yeah, he seems cold and compassionless, but it's refreshing as a patient to be told exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And to not feel like you're being yo-yoed around or like your intelligence is being insulted, like you can't handle the truth and all of that. I guess what I'm saying is he's too extreme in his philosophy probably, but he has a point.
Yeah.
In the way that he handles people, and even in the somewhat unethical nature of his practice. His idea of proving what the problem is with a treatment, like that's like objectively unethical. And maybe there's degrees of it, and I'm not in the medical profession and I don't know about this stuff, so it's hard to say like how far any of that should really go, having never been there. Mm-hmm. But the idea that if there's I was going to say if there's not any real danger in trying something, why not try it? But then you can't really know what side effects will happen sometimes too. But then he's got this great point where he's like, but doctors theorize all the time. Yeah. And you'll have like 5 different diagnoses all based on the same information. But then the point that the director has of, okay, but you don't have any information, like any real proof, means that you probably shouldn't do that. I found all of that compelling and intriguing, and there's 2 real sides to an argument. Yeah. And this woman would have died if he didn't try the things he's trying. Yeah. But then there's the question of at what cost. And like, I love that she compares him to Nazis and all of that. Like,
yeah. I do like that.
There's just this incredible balance where he's as likable as he is, and yet you cannot fully condone the way he operates.
Yeah. I think his and we will talk about all this later, but I think his just the way he's characterized is just kind of really one of the main reasons I would just want to keep going with the show. Mm-hmm. Just because it's very it's something that I haven't really seen before.
Well, and I feel like in the last 20 years, because the show is almost that old, I've seen some things influenced by it that I didn't realize were maybe influenced by it.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in a period of time in the early 2000s where anti-heroes and ethically ambiguous protagonists were getting really, really popular. And this is in that vein.
Yeah.
Most certainly. You know, going up to Dexter and things like that. But I like that it's not gimmicky in the sense that look at this crazy doctor who does horrible things to people. You know what I mean? Like he comes from a real place.
Yeah.
And I get I start really considering maybe watching more of the show at the point where he starts talking about his tragic backstory.
Yeah.
When he gets into like there's no such thing as dying with dignity.
Yep.
And like we're just frail creatures that anything horrible can happen to us at any time.
Yeah. And
the kind of the parallel between him and the guest star, that's when I really get kind of sucked into this.
Yeah. This seems like the kind of show that wouldn't go on for 8 seasons. Like, this is the kind of show where if I were, like, I don't know how they would come up with enough ideas.
Yeah.
For this show.
And this is one of the shows that people complain went on too long and does not have a great last couple seasons. And people were talking about in the comments earlier. The magic number seems to be 5 with a lot of people with stuff like this.
Yeah.
Ended off at that point. So one place where I think we do have a little bit of prequelitis is in all these realizations that House's hired doctors are having in how he hired them, and that all of those conversations are happening now, like with this case.
Yeah.
That's a little easy. I think they contrive it as believably as possible, but it is a device, right? So that we can, again, understand these people in relation to House, and so that it can inform his character.
Yeah.
And that's some of probably the most forced stuff in it, I think, but I like it all. It's a little contrived.
Mm-hmm.
In getting us there. I have to keep reminding myself how long he's been working with these people, because there's conversations that I sometimes feel like maybe they would have had already.
Yeah.
Or is this the first time he's worked with some of them? I guess I'm not sure.
It doesn't seem like that, but I'm not sure.
Somebody will tell us, but I was a little bit confused about that, because you had the guy at the beginning that kind of spells out, you don't want to work with actual human beings. You don't care about people so much as just resolving these mysteries.
Mm-hmm. I actually forgot about that one.
I like the part where he says where he says that people used to have respect for cripples, and then he looks at the guy in the wheelchair and he says no, they didn't, because then at the end of the show he says, I never lie.
Yeah.
He just lied.
Yeah, he did. That's true.
Which I think was intentional. AMC, my favorite was always Chase, the Australian guy with the long hair. He has a whole subplot where he had been a priest prior to becoming a doctor, which classes wonderfully with House's atheism. Oh, interesting. I kind of wondered if we would get into some religious stuff down the road. I kind of questioned the purple lighting filter in that scene. What do you think of just what the show looks like?
I actually do like what the show looks like. I mean, it's good for like a hospital drama.
There's a nice kind of ticking time bomb, or ticking clock, I should say, with House refusing to actually meet this patient because he doesn't want her, influencing his diagnosis, or he just, and part of it is too, just he doesn't like dealing with people. They have to have a scene together.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting for it and waiting for it. We finally get there. It's probably the best scene in the episode.
Yeah.
For my money, anyway. You said your favorite scene was that early one with the hospital director.
Yeah. Oh, and I didn't even catch this.
What's that?
But the first time you watch this, you aren't even thinking about this, but he's pretending that she's his cousin.
Yeah.
And he has a whole scene with her, and it looks like they had just met.
Yeah.
And she...
So the audience is supposed to already be aware of this.
Right, but I didn't even catch it. Because she even asks if he is Dr. House.
Yeah.
And
she doesn't know who he is.
Yeah.
I was a little confused as to why it mattered to him that much that House take this particular case.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
You know, because, like...
I think it's just because,
aren't there a lot of people with awful conditions that could come in here that he would really hope that House would go take? Like, why her specifically?
Well, I don't know. I think it's just because, like, they said that apparently it's he's, like, their best doctor or something. But I wasn't sure. I still am not sure why her specifically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because it's not very interesting until we get to the end and we figure out what it is.
That's what I was going to say is they don't know how weird and rare it is.
Yeah.
They're having a hard time figuring out how to treat it, but they think it's a tumor.
Because, yeah, they think it's a tumor, and why would he go treat it?
And then he thinks it's something else that needs steroids, and then at the end they figure out that it's a tapeworm. But not knowing that it's the rarest thing you can imagine. And by the way, somebody was saying in the comments earlier that one criticism people had initially was just, like, how absurdly unusual this condition is. And so you can't have one of these every episode.
Right. Well, I mean, what's funny is the other hospital show that was a lot like this, that was on around the same time, also had an episode with a tapeworm.
There was something in the air.
Yeah.
Osmosis with hospital shows, you were going to get tapeworms. I don't know. But yeah, see, he's just tackling everything with cold, hard logic.
Yeah.
And you go, well, God, that's awful that you want to just watch her die and hope that you can do something about it before it's too late when you figure out what's killing her. But when nobody else has a better answer, a better option, you go, I mean, he seems right about it.
Yeah.
And there's that question of, does he even really care about human beings?
Yeah.
And there's reason to be concerned about, obviously a doctor that operates that way. But at the end of the day, he doesn't have any malice against anyone, really. And like cutting out all the BS and just straight up going, we don't know what else to do. Ultimately leads him to be able to figure things out. So like I said, he's got a point with some of this.
Yeah.
As cold as he seems.
I think this is funny.
This is a great little bit. Did you call this? Did you see where it was going?
No, I didn't.
So, Jason, this is what we call the placebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know about that?
Not really, but I've heard it.
Placebo is you give someone, like, sugar pills or something, and you claim that they're that they're medicine, and if the patient believes they're medicine, then they'll, in a psychosomatic way, maybe recover from something. They can trick their body into recovering.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing.
Yeah. Kind of like, you know how, like, when like a 2-year-old hurts himself, and then you're just like just rub it.
Yeah, or if I kiss it, you'll feel better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly that. And in a lot of studies, people will get placebos or the actual experimental drug, and then you see, how many people are cured by the drug or doing better because of the drug versus the placebo.
Yeah.
But that's interesting too, because that's another example where House is lying.
Yeah. Yeah.
He does lie.
Yeah. I really like these kinds of
that makes
scenes.
him a hypocrite, and you wonder if he is self-aware enough to even realize that about himself, where he's like, all these other people are lying for their own ends and for self-preservation and all of that, but he's a human being. It's human condition. He does the same thing. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I really like these kinds of scenes where, like, they're doing something really important, but they're just kind of like they're the only ones in the room, and they're just kind of having an important conversation.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like, and I wonder what it's like later on in the show, but it doesn't feel like the supporting cast is taking over. It doesn't feel like an ensemble show.
Yeah.
Everybody is here to serve this protagonist.
Right.
Even if they all have like potential and cool places they could go, and you're wondering about the backgrounds of all of them. Yeah, I still don't get this.
I don't really understand.
And this whole conversation is really weird, where he's like, "Oh, she must not be Jewish because she's got pork," and then he's like, "Not all Jews are kosher," and like this whole conversation, I just thought was a little odd.
Yeah.
Because like it doesn't matter that Eric is wrong because they're not related. It turns out anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was all kind of an odd choice. It feels like they're trying too hard to give us a reason that House would take this case.
Yeah.
Like he's got his doctors doing the face-to-face work with most patients anyway. So why can't it just be a patient they take on? I'm lost on that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something I'm missing, but at the moment I'm kind of lost on that. One thing I like about the 4 hours a week thing is that he's treating it almost like he's done a crime and he's having to do community service. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really funny. Bob Garland says House as a character is like Stephen Strange if he remained a doctor after the accident. Yeah, I had the same thing. Ego with talent to match. Hugo Laurie was great in the role. And like I said, the only difference for me is that he's actually more sympathetic from the beginning. Yeah. It's a very different sort of arrogance. And it's more earned to me, really. I had this about it too, and I'm going to meet my I must connect everything to Star Trek quota.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right here. But go ahead.
I don't like how much CG.
Yeah, I'm with you. He is a perfect blend of McCoy and Spock. He's both. He's McCoy if McCoy was a Vulcan. Mm-hmm. Or if McCoy was like a half Vulcan.
Yeah.
And not to say that he's fully stoic, but he answers everything with cold logic. Mm-hmm. And I think they know it. I think they've thought of that because you have that old country doctor line at the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
No.
In the first few minutes, somebody says he's just an old-fashioned country doctor.
Oh, I didn't actually...
That's McCoy. That's a Star Trek reference all by itself.
Yeah, I actually didn't catch that line.
Bob Garland House didn't find any of the cases pre-Adler to be interesting. His interest is key in wanting to even look at a file. Okay, but I mean, how long does he go without taking any cases at all? I mean, he's got to occasionally have cases. Mm-hmm.
Alright, I want to see if this scene is better than the other scene.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the writing in the sequence, and these two play a scene wonderfully well together.
Yeah.
You need a really strong guest star for a pilot like this.
You really do.
That's a thing that's hard to nail in general. You know, like you get the Freak of the Week thing with shows like Smallville, where that's a really underwhelming, like not memorable guest star, really. Like the Lightning guy at the beginning of Smallville.
Yeah, that.
Like just imagine if he was a like really sympathetic, bad guy that you kind of. Or somebody you really love to hate or something, that you actually remembered past that. She is the equivalent of your Crypto Freak, even though she is not an antagonist.
Yeah.
Bob Garland, I think he went months before Adler. Then since the show picks up, he finds them regularly. Gotta satisfy the formula. Okay. I mean, it is a little bit clunky, I think, in its occasion for story, I guess. Especially because I didn't read a lot about the show because I was letting you do the background, but I saw something about how the main conflict of the overarching story after this in the first season is apparently somebody that swoops in and gives the hospital a lot of money and then kind of he's like a big antagonist, like kind of the bad guy, and is trying to get House under his thumb and make him do whatever he wants because he's got control of the hospital. He gave him a lot of money. And that feels like a double occasion for story to me.
Yeah.
Where, like, you could have started it with that.
Yeah.
But thanks for breaking that down, Bob Garland. That makes a lot more sense. Because they say it's been 6 years since he's, like, seen patients. But I thought the idea was that he was still having his doctors kind of do everything. So there's that ceiling shot again. And I don't know if you had this.
I think they just really like that ceiling.
Well, I thought Bryan Singer was ceilings. We didn't even talk about Bryan Singer.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But he directed the pilot and the third episode, apparently.
Okay.
And this is an opportune time for us to talk about the show because I just did X2 on the Superhero Rewind commentary project. And so we've been dealing with Singer stuff lately. And anyway, not that this has anything to do with the first time you saw that ceiling shot, but first time around, I thought maybe that was a fake out. Because right after that scene, I thought maybe he had convinced her to go through with this new, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, this actually revelation is pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
But anyway, when he's trying to get her to accept this new treatment, in that scene, he's got a really convincing speech. And then we're looking at the ceiling, so I'm thinking she's on a gurney being wheeled down to go do it. And then it goes to him. Like, I think that's a fake out, maybe.
Okay, see, I didn't actually catch that.
Because I was really shocked when he says, yeah, no treatment, she's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And it takes proof before she will, which I hadn't had this thought before, but that means that both he and the hospital director are right. Yeah. Because it's not just about ethics, it's what you can convince a patient to go through with.
Yeah.
Like, after trying all these different things and she's almost died twice.
Yeah.
You're not gonna trust your doctors. You're gonna go, well, you guys are just screwing around trying crap. My big takeaway from this is not a job I ever would have been able to do, and I'm glad I didn't try to go to medical school or something.
Yeah.
Right? Bob Garland, as far as seeing patients, if I remember right, he stopped seeing patients after his leg, which the show does explain in late season 1 or 2. Oh, okay. Maybe that's implied enough, though. I feel like I could have maybe guessed that.
Yeah.
Somehow I forgot that he had an Australian accent, but I think there's even a joke or two about it in the episode.
There might be.
Where somebody calls him, like, Down Under.
Yeah.
I think maybe...
I think so.
Isn't that a thing where House calls him Down Under?
But he's the one who I always forgot existed.
So, there's the sign on his door. I'm actually kind of surprised that the name of the show wasn't Gregory House, MD. Instead of just House. That sounds more like a TV show name.
I'm not sure.
Bright Burns, $5 super chat. Fun fact, Bryan Singer wanted House star Hugh Larry to play Perry White in Superman Returns. Scheduling conflicts prevented it from happening. He would have been good for that, but that Perry White got nothing to do. So, no great loss, really. And that pick was good, but he also got nothing to do. But thanks for the super chat. So, some of this is sexual harassment in on a level that I don't think you could really get away with now. Just the way he's talking to her, but boy, I love his whole point with this. Because at first it seems like he was just really impressed with her for going through school and doing all these very, very difficult things that she wouldn't maybe have to, because looking the way she does, she could, he says, just get things handed to her.
Yeah.
He says she looks like a supermodel, whether you believe or agree with that or not. Like, something about the way they're shooting her, and I don't mean to be superficial about it, but I kept going kind of, I don't know, does she look like a supermodel?
Yeah.
I don't know if the actress they cast, or at least the way they're shooting her, I'm really seeing that. Like, she's not unattractive or anything, I don't mean that, but I was really but I was surprised by that when he's like, you're super hot, you could get anything you want. I'm like, oh, that's what they're going for with this character. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought the casting was a little off the beaten path for that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make this point without sounding really superficial. But anyway, I think it's this bizarre, or this kind of weird backhanded compliment where it's like, you're super attractive, you could have just been handed anything you wanted to, but you stuck to it and you worked hard, and that's why you got hired. And then you get to the end of the scene and he says, nobody who looks like you do goes through all the crap you have to do for medical school and works this hard if you're not damaged.
Yeah.
And that's the real reason he hired her.
Yeah.
Because he sees something of himself in her, and he thinks maybe she's motivated more by the kinds of things that he is.
Yeah.
So, like with Eric, he brings him in because he's willing to do some of the unethical things that he thinks is necessary in order to solve problems. And like, she's damaged. She's not just there because she's compassionate and she cares about people. She's compelled by something else.
Yeah.
She needs to solve these problems in the same way he does.
Yeah.
So that's all very interesting. Not having any idea what her background is and where we're going.
Yeah. Okay, I don't understand this part because she, earlier in the show, said that she had, like, 20 kids in her class. But then they said that she has, like, 17 kids in her class.
Well, maybe 3 of them just couldn't come.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. What do you make of him watching standard medical dramas?
What?
What do you make of him watching standard medical dramas?
I think it's funny.
But why? Like, what in his character makes him like those kinds of shows? Because I would think that, like, the lack of realism and believability would maybe turn him off. I kind of wondered about it.
Yeah.
But, like, it's a fun character quirk.
Yeah.
Or maybe the idea is that they're so fictitious to him that he can get lost in them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that it's escapism for him because the real world is so not black and white.
Yeah.
That he likes those kinds of things. Change for a dollar is a really good kind of last line.
Yeah, I think that's a good line because it goes from a part earlier in the show.
Yeah.
And it's just a cool line. I don't know.
I also really love that callback to the line that she had at the beginning. If we, we're doctors. If we make mistakes, people die. Mm-hmm. And then that's in the General Hospital episode at the end.
That scene at the end had like 4 callbacks to the episode.
Yeah. But I like that because they're kind of poking fun at themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
Where they're saying simultaneously, we're not a standard medical drama. You don't know where we're going.
Yeah.
But then there's the places where they just straight up are.
Yeah.
And it helps you, I don't know, it helps you figure out the internal logic real early, I think.
Yeah.
Depending on like how close this ends up being to what the rest of the show will be.
Yeah.
Bob Garland, Star Trek Connection, the actress playing Cameron played Kirk's mother in 2009. I didn't catch that, but she does not get hardly any screen time. I think that's funny though because she's in like a medical gown and stuff because she's in a wheelchair because she's about to deliver. Interesting.
Oh,
Robotters 100. House does the formula of the week, but you come back for House, and the lows the character goes through with his professional life and his personal, which are never separated. Yeah, like I'm getting the appeal. I gotta say, like I said, I looked at it twice before today.
Yeah, me too.
And on first viewing, I thought my answer to that question was gonna be no, not really. Like it's a really solid pilot.
Yeah.
But I'm not like a hospital drama guy, and it didn't do enough to make me want to go to that place every week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be in a sterile hospital every week. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the same in the same way that I can only handle so much of like a show set in a prison, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I haven't seen any shows set in prison.
And then I watched it again, and I went, okay, I'm latching on more to the character study, and that might be enough to bring me back and make me keep wanting to watch week to week. Like I just wanted to analyze that character.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the tragedy of him, and I'm really buying that he probably used to be a lot less antisocial, and I'm kind of wondering what he was like before the injury.
Yeah.
And it also kind of hit me sideways because at first I thought he was faking the limp. Because he's got that line toward the beginning about how he doesn't want people to think that he's a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought the stick was a gimmick.
Mm.
I thought he was going that far. And then it played like a big reveal to me, especially the second time.
Yeah.
That all of this is that everything about his philosophy is because of what happened to him that makes him walk with the cane.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and go through our quick litany of questions here, Jason. So do you think this pilot has pilotitis?
I do not think it does.
I think it has a little bit in some of the couple things I complained about with it earlier, but like it does tell a decent enough story all by itself.
Yeah,
I like the mystery fine, but it does have that character introduction thing, where I don't know that its characters are introduced as naturally as maybe they could have been.
I don't think they were introduced that, like, I think they were just, okay, they're there, like, I feel like, if you didn't know that this was a pilot and it was just a random episode, I feel like you would just be like, okay, it's, like, these are just characters, right?
You wouldn't even know if you were going to see them every week? Or...
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe so. And like I said, I had that less the first time than looking at it a second time.
Yeah.
But I mean, comparing it to the first show we did, it's night and day.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised, like I said, that people were saying the show turns into something kind of different very quickly, because I thought it had a real sure footing right away.
Yeah.
That like it had a pretty good sense of identity.
Yeah.
Right off. So character that most would make you want to come back, like besides House, I think that's obvious,
yeah,
right?
I think that's obvious. I think.
But I do have to say that because I almost wasn't going to watch anymore, and now I'm considering it.
Yeah, I think probably the boss character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it for me. She's really wonderfully played.
Yeah.
If the show is in a genre you're not usually drawn to, does it make you more interested in that genre? This is a big one for today.
It is.
Maybe a little in this particular case.
Maybe a
where,
little.
like, I didn't think I would want to regularly watch a hospital drama, and now I'm considering it.
Yeah.
So that's a big positive check mark. Again, I feel like it's kind of found its identity. Although I will say I was suspicious of how feel-good it felt at the end.
Yeah.
Because it's got a real cynical main character, and there's a bit of an edge to it. But it does feel a little typical TV in how kind of, like, nicely wrapped up in a bow and kind of how happy it is.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's protesting that a bit at the end with that line about how he fixed her, but she couldn't fix him.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, don't worry, like, it's not going to be that sappy.
Yeah.
I also thought it had a really good balance in not letting the main character learn too much in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Not have him come too far.
Yeah, I think so too.
But it also felt like there's the potential for him to change and grow.
Yeah.
At the same time, like, I found myself going, I don't know how much legs. I mean, I realized the show was on for a long time, so I assumed it must. But I was like, if I just watched this when it came out, I'd be like, wow, how does this really have legs with this character? Because he's either going to he's either going to be a character that refuses to change, and I don't know how long I'll like him, or he's going to change too much and lose what it is that we liked about him.
Yeah.
If you were a network executive, do you greenlight the series?
Yeah.
I think most assuredly.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And then again, realistically, will you keep watching the show? I think if I find the time, I think I will watch a couple more episodes.
Yeah.
Because I'm for no other reason than I'm too curious to see what people are talking about.
Yeah.
With how different it is, but I also was already no other reason. I was already considering it because like I said, the character study really grabbed me.
And I feel like if we really like get the characters like, man, I had the word like 10 seconds ago.
Oh,
but
sorry.
if the character when we when the characters really find their like footing and you know, I feel like the show would actually be even better. You know, and that usually happens by like season 2 or something. Like, you know, you know all the characters and they're, you know, and the show the creative team knows the characters.
Yeah.
And like the writers know the characters, so it's, you know, it's a bit better.
Yeah, that's a good call. But again, they don't. I'll be surprised if they seem like completely different people a season from now.
I don't think they would. Yeah.
Bob Garland, I think a lot of his philosophy was their pre-leg incident because of his childhood, but the things that happened concerning his legs, his leg kicked it to 11. That makes a lot of sense. And like I said, I was only watching the pilot. I don't know what any of the rest of his backstory is. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a big question mark for me. I was really curious about that.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't figure he was, you know, I said he probably wasn't as antisocial. Like, I wonder about that, because he just seems so extremely that way.
Yeah.
Like, all the way to, I just don't want to even have to deal with patience. Mm-hmm. But I could see somebody like that already having that philosophy built in of everybody lies and I don't trust anybody. Because that, you're right, that doesn't sound like a thing that would come from the leg incident, because that was his body relenting against him, not human beings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, but you can see how that could make somebody go that extreme, because maybe he didn't trust people before that, and now he can't even trust, like, nature as far as he thought maybe he could.
Yeah.
So then you have, I mean, I feel like with this character you have, like, all three of the big story types, right? It's man versus man, man versus nature, and man versus himself all together.
Yeah.
He's doing all three simultaneously. Brightburns, try to keep things on topic for this show if you guys wouldn't mind, but I appreciate the super chat. He just says, bought Mario 1993 because I want to rot my mind. He just bought that movie. I missed this one. He also says, I used to marvel at the actress who played Dr. Lisa Cuddy because she looks like who I would imagine in my mind as a Lois Lane character. I could kind of see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't seeing supermodel.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem like that type. AMC House himself hardly changes throughout the show, almost to a detriment. Okay, interesting to know that. And Bob Garland says, I think you would both... let me look at this again. I think you both would grow to enjoy Wilson as a character, as he's a Watson parable. And Jason picked up on that. He said that while we were watching it. But the writers find a way to put him through jokes without losing any credibility to his character. That's cool. One thing they could have maybe done with him is go as far as to do the Watson thing where he is like narrating and telling us about House.
Yeah.
But I think I like that they didn't go there. But they could have.
Yeah.
Roboter is one thing to keep in mind. House is in a constant chronic pain as it will influence House and his actions. I guess I forgot about that because I don't think that's super clear from the pilot. But that's one thing that I remember my mom and my stepdad mentioning about him is that like he's always in pain, so that keeps his irritability up.
Oh, I actually didn't.
My parents, or at least again my mom and my stepdad, are obsessed with this show. But I never actually sat down and watched it with them because they got into it well after I moved out of the house.
Yeah.
The house. Okay, so that is going to do it for us today. So I said I want to keep watching it. Where did you come down on that? Maybe you'll look at it again? Or?
Yeah, I think I would watch at least a couple more episodes, if not, like, the first season.
Cool. So this could be one that we come back and do a revisited on.
Yeah, maybe.
We're planning on doing that every few shows, every 8 or 10 shows or so. We'll come back and do a commentary on an episode of a show that we've already done a pilot for. So it'll still be the pilot show, but it'll be us checking back in with it and going, we like this enough to continue. Do we still like it? Do we want to keep watching it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we'll do multiple revisits on shows. I guess it just depends on what it is, but that could happen. And time and stuff, because, like, again, it's a show for people who don't always finish things.
Yeah.
So I meant to mention at the beginning of today's episode that we are going to go ahead and do the obvious thing for our channel and do superhero next time.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. This, for whatever reason, I was just reminded of this. This is the thing I wanted to say right at the beginning when we were watching the episode.
Mm-hmm.
But something about the way that opening sequence is shot and the kind of mysterious music reminded me real hard of Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Anyway,
oh, we gotta do that at some point.
Yeah, and we should maybe try to do one of those this month. Even though what we're gonna do, or I say one of those, like the pilot. What we're gonna do next time is that same era and kind of that kind of show. So I don't know if we want to do that, but we're gonna do superhero next time. But we're gonna do maybe not the first thing you would think. This is a thing I haven't watched in a really long time. And I don't remember it being very good, but we're going to try it. So this will be even like a third category, a show that we actually have both seen, but don't know very well.
Yeah. And I have only seen, like, the pilot, and it was a long time ago.
Do you remember it being awful?
I remember it not being very good.
And this also has an X-Men connection.
Oh, does it?
Yes, because the lead actor is Shawn Ashmore.
It is.
From the X-Men movies. We're going to do Animorphs next time.
We are. We're doing Animorphs.
And that show, just in case you want to watch it with us, is not readily available on a streaming service without commercials. So there is, I think, a service that you can watch it on if you don't mind sitting through commercials. It makes it harder to do to listen to the commentary with us, or to watch it with us. But you can also buy the episodes on Amazon for like $2 a piece, I think, which is probably what we'll do just to get past commercials. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do Animorphs, and because that's a series that Jason and I both know the books of.
Yep.
I mean, you never finished it, but
I never finished it, but I read the first like 15, I think.
Yeah, and I read all of it back in the day. But yeah, that's what we're doing. Animorphs next time. So look forward to that. That I think is a 2-part pilot, so that'll be 45 minutes again.
It is, yeah.
And in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed today's edition of The Pilot Show. We've now officially seen House.
We have.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, that is very exciting.
Jason, any final words before we finish up today?
I don't think so.
All right, well, appreciate you guys. I will be back again tomorrow night, probably for a tier-making video. I'm going to do another ranking list thing, probably Power Rangers related this time. And Captain Logan show on Thursday, and then Friday night. Actually, let me go ahead and announce this real quick. Just if you're because this will date this, but if you're keeping up regularly with the channel, Friday night, Austin's not going to be around, so Jason and I are talking about binging the new season of Power Rangers, Cosmic Fury, which we've watched the first couple of episodes of, but we're going to blind watch the rest of it. So I think that's what we're going to do
Yeah, I think that's what.
that night. We'll tell you if it changes. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan.
I was Jason.
Bye, folks.